Hello everybody, it's me again. So I thought for today I would do something completely different. Now I've actually done this before, but to be honest, it sucked. So I'm gonna redo this again. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing a review of the Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis. There are 7 books in the series, and this time I'm gonna be very specific about what happens in the story. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, I was actually introduced to the Narnia series back when I was 12 years old. My English teacher had actually read the first 2 books to me in the whole class, and of course I didn't care for them that much. But over a year later, I actually got copies of the books myself, and I started reading them, and I actually enjoyed them a lot. Plus, they're actually audiobooks. So the reason why is because my dad mostly collects audiobooks because, I mean, he does like to read, but the thing is, it's just really hard for him to understand what's going on. So he got me copies of the audiobooks instead. But these are kind of like focused on the family radio theaters. Like, you can't see the movie, you can only hear the movie. So, yeah. So anyway, so the first book is titled The Magician's Nephew, though in publication order, it's actually the 6th book. The reason why is because they're chronological orders because this book explains everything about it in the next book, which I'll talk about that later. So in this book, we are introduced to 2 characters named Diggory Kirke and Polly Plummer, and both of them were actually tricked by Diggory's wicked uncle, and they get transported to other worlds, and along the way they actually met an evil witch, and that witch comes to our world and tries to take over it and make us become her slaves, but Diggory and Polly managed to get her out of our world, and they actually found themselves in the very beginning of the land of Narnia, and we see it, being created, and see animals talking, and all of them were actually created by Aslan. And Aslan is a lion. He's not a man. He's a lion. And the way Lewis describes this book is actually it's just so beautiful. I think this is actually a really fascinating book, and it's just absolutely amazing. So it's really fun. I really like this book, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And yeah, and Diggory Kirke is actually one of my favorite characters in the series. I think it's a really interesting book. The next book in the series is titled The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It is actually the first book written, though in public chronological, it's the 2nd book. Because The Magician's Nephew explains everything in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So just so you know, I couldn't be able to find any copies of the others that look like this, look like the others, so I kind of made my own. This is what the original copies supposed to look like, so I just printed it and I just carved it. So yeah. So in this book, we actually introduced to the Pevensies, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. They discover a wardrobe and found themselves in Narnia in the winter. And hundreds of years have passed since the events of the Narnia time in The Magician's Nephew. Because time is different here in our world. Because however long you live in Narnia, and once you're back in this world, you will immediately start right where you left off. And however long you live here, you can't tell how time is going there. It might be any number of years in Narnia, while only 1 year has passed for them here. So yeah. And we also have the return of the witch again, who has now become the evil White Witch, and we also get to meet Aslan. And what happens is the witch actually ruled Narnia for 100 years of winter. And I really, really like this book. This is probably my favorite book in the series, and I think it's just the way Lewis describes it is just absolutely beautiful. I also love the movie as well. I thought the movie was absolutely amazing. It's just really good acting, great music, great climax. They did their own kind of little twist on it, but I think the movie was just phenomenal. I thought it was absolutely beautiful, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, this is a really nice book. I would highly suggest you read it. I would suggest you read this one before The Magician's Nephew. The next book in the series is called The Horse and His Boy. This is actually the 5th book in publication order. Now, this one actually takes place during the events of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We actually get to see the Pevensies, but the story does not focus on them at all. It focuses on a different character named Shasta. And this takes place in the very south of Narnia called Calormen, which is kind of like Agrabah. So in Calormen, we actually, there are no talking beasts in that world. So, and there are lots of slaves as well. And Shasta actually teams up with a talking horse named Bree, and they run off together to Narnia, and along the way they actually meet another talking horse with a rider named Aravis. And so they journey off, and the way Lewis describes it, I mean, there are some plots that are kind of boring. I don't know, it's just, this is obviously probably my least favorite book. I mean, I don't hate it or anything. It's just not my favorite in the series. But I think it's a really good it's an okay story. It's just I wish it could have had more action moments, you know. But I think this is actually a really good book, and I think Shasta is a good character. So is Aravis. But what I mostly like about it were the horses, Bree and Hwyn. I think they're very funny. But again, we also have Aslan as well. The next book in the series is called Prince Caspian. Now, this actually takes place right after the ending of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Again, we have the return of the Pevensies. They get summoned back to Narnia after hundreds of years, and Narnia has been taken over by Telmarines, and one of these Telmarines is named Prince Caspian, of course. See, he's known about the stories about old Narnia, and the thing is his uncle Miras is trying to kill him. I'm not going to tell you why. And Caspian teams up with the Pevensies and help turn Narnia back to the way it was. Because what happens is all of the, you know, talking beasts, dryads, naiads, centaurs, and fauns, all of them were, you know, being sent away somewhere else. Places where Telmarines cannot see them. But yeah, I think this is actually a really good book. I didn't like the movie that much, but there were so many things that really annoyed me. And this is actually what happened. Wait, I'll talk about that in another video. So yeah, I really think this is a really good book. I really like it. It's probably my third favorite in the series. But yeah, it's a really nice book. I'm really glad I liked it, and it's just really good. Now the next book in the series is titled The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. First of all, I really do not like this cover. I mean, it looks so ridiculous. I mean, it's supposed to be a dragon, but to me it looks kind of like a weird looking swan. I mean, seriously, look at it. It's got like swan wings. It's just so ridiculous. And these faces, you can't really see them, but there are faces up here, and that's really kind of creepy. I don't know. This is actually my least favorite cover in the series. Yeah. So in this story, we actually have the return of Edmund, Lucy, and along with their cousin Eustace. Peter and Susan cannot come back because what happened in Prince Caspian. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And in this story, Eustace is actually supposed to be a mean little brat, but as the story goes by, he becomes a very nice person. And so again, they go on the ship called the Dawn Treader. They team up with Caspian, and together they go from land to land, trying to find the Seven Lords, which Caspian's uncle had sent away years before during the events of Prince Caspian. I think this is actually a really good book. I really like it. But I think it's a really good story. My favorite scene would have to be the scene where Lucy was going through the Magician's book to help these creatures. I'm not gonna tell you what they are. And I think this is actually a really good story. A lot of people think it's creepy, but to me, I think it's really interesting. And it's just the way Lewis describes it is just so fascinating. I don't know why. I think it's very interesting. Oh, and I absolutely hated the movie. I was very disappointed with it. There were so many plots that don't make sense. The effects are a little weird, and it's just this is really, I just can't believe what they've done with it. That's not how Voyage of the Dawn Treader is about. Oh my gosh. Ugh. So yeah, I did not like the movie at all. But I really like the book, and just the way Lewis describes it is absolutely amazing. And I just wish they could have just followed what was really in the book. The next book in the series is titled The Silver Chair. This is probably my second favorite book in the series, because in this story we have the return of Eustace along with his friend Jilpol, who is actually the main character in the story. And what happens is that they go to a very bad school, they run away from the bullies, and found themselves in Narnia, and Aslan gives them a quest to find the lost prince who was captured by an evil witch. And they journey north to try and find him, and they actually team up with this creature named Puddleglum. I'm not going to tell you what creature he is, but the way Lewis describes him, he's actually quite funny. He may seem like a scaredy cat, but he's actually very brave. And I think the way Lewis describes this book is absolutely fascinating. And I really love how that's called the Silver Chair. I thought it was really interesting. But Jill is probably my favorite character in this series, because I actually kind of relate to her a lot. Also, for any Harry Potter fans out there who are watching this, if you have not read this book, or if you have done, you might find it very similar to one of her stories that J.K. Rowling wrote, because this is actually one of the inspirations for one of her Harry Potter novels. So so if you have not read this, I would have suggest you read this. I have heard that they are going to make this into a movie, but I don't know. It's just there are parts of me that doesn't want me to see it, but there are parts of me that does want me to see it. I just don't really know. It's gonna be a very long time before it happens. It's probably gonna take place like, I don't know, like 8 to 10 years after the release of Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and obviously they're not gonna use the same actors. Now, the last book in the series is titled The Last Battle. Now, first of all, I actually do like this cover. I think it's quite beautiful, but it's also scary as well. Because, mostly like that was the inside of it. Because, we got, like this beautiful colored background inside the door, and we got this beautiful unicorn right here. But the outside of it is kind of scary. Now, this is actually going to be a very, very big spoiler. So if you have not read this, haven't read this book, I would suggest you stop watching this video because I really need to discuss it. Now, this story is actually quite beautiful, but also scary at the same time, because what happens is that there was an evil ape, the ape Shift. He has pretty much taken over Narnia, and he manipulates his donkey friend Puzzle as Aslan, dressed him up in a lion suit, and pretty much selling all the trees to Colomans. And what happens is that there's going to be a last battle going on because Narnia is going to be destroyed. And there was actually this one creature, Tash, and he absolutely scares me. Every time I read about him, I absolutely get terrified of him. He's just absolutely scary. But what happens is that we actually have the return of all the kids, except for Susan, because she no longer believes in Narnia. And what happens is that back in our world, Diggory, Polly, Peter, all the characters, they would go on a train, and that train crashed and they died. And what happens is that Aslan pretty much creates a new Narnia for them, and I don't know, it's just the way Lewis describes it. It is sad and scary, but also beautiful at the same time. Every time I read the ending of it, I find it so absolutely incredible. I think it's just absolutely beautiful the way Lewis describes it and the way he wraps up the story. I don't know. I really like the ending of it. I may not really like this book. It's probably my second least favorite book, right next to Horse and This Boy. But I think it's a really okay book. But the ending is what really captured me the most. Was, that scene at the end. And it's just absolutely beautiful. I really think it's a really good ending. But yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Chronicles of Narnia, and I'm glad I read them, and I would really suggest you read them. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully within the next few months we might be able to get a director or at least a release date for what's going to happen in the Silver Chair film. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye!